Welcome back, you gluttons for punishment. Today, we're diving into the delightful world of economic babble with none other than Ray Dalio, who seems to think he's got the magic answer to Trump's tariffs. Spoiler alert, he's concerned about the solution. Well, aren't we all? I mean, who doesn't love a good economic debate? It's like watching paint dry, but with more jargon and less excitement. So grab your popcorn, or whatever it is you kids eat these days, and prepare for a session of high-level grumbling. And hey, if you find yourself chuckling at my cynical commentary, or just want to witness my toad-like charm, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Trust me, it's the best decision you'll make today, unless you're planning to take a nap. Let's get this over with.
Bridgewater Associates founder Ray Dalio posting on LinkedIn and weighing in on tariffs. He says it's more important to focus on the idea that, quote, we're seeing a classic breakdown of the major monetary, political, and geopolitical orders. This sort of breakdown occurs only...
The classic breakdown of major orders spiel. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? Like a soap opera for economists. But let's be real. This breakdown happens more often than my bog gets flooded. It's like history's way of reminding us that we're all just one bad decision away from chaos. And here's a thought. If these unsustainable conditions keep popping up, maybe we should stop pretending they're surprising. It's like expecting a toad to sing opera. Just not gonna happen.
Only about once in a lifetime, but they have happened many times in history when similar unsustainable conditions were in place. Joining us right now, first on CNBC, is Bridgewater founder Ray Dalio, and we're thrilled to have you here on a morning when we're still trying to make sense of what all these tariffs mean, Ray, and frankly, how all of this plays out. So to the extent that you can help us with the history, or at least a history lesson, if you think there are parallels, how does this play out?
Good to see you, Joe. Andrew, Joe, and Becky. I think that we don't understand how the cycle goes because it comes along about once in a lifetime. But there are orders, there are systems, and the systems break down for certain reasons, and it creates cycles. For example, there's a monetary system, and then there's a debt cycle. And so as a result, we now have one man's debts, another man's assets. And when you build these up and you get to a point...
The classic one man's debt is another man's asset line. It's like a financial version of one toad's trash is another toad's treasure. But let's be honest, this is just a fancy way of saying we're all in a giant game of economic musical chairs, and when the music stops, someone's left holding the bag. It's a cycle that's as predictable as my morning croak. If only we could figure out how to break that cycle, instead of just talking about it like it's some grand mystery.
Get to a point where you can't sustain that, you have a debt issue. We have a debt issue. We can get into that. But there's a monetary cycle. There's a internal political order cycle that takes us from one political order to another political order, in which there's then classically great turbulence between the left and the right. And because of disorder, particularly in democracies, there's a lot of fighting because there needs to be cooperation, compromise, and so on. And we're in the process of changing that order. In addition, we have the international world order. International world order began in 1945. There's a war. You win a war. The dominant powers get to set the rules. That was a series of multilateralism, things like the United Nations World.
The classic winner set the rules scenario. It's like a game of Monopoly, where the person who wins just decides to change all the rules to keep their advantage. And let's not forget the big forces he's about to list. Droughts, floods, and pandemics. Sounds like a delightful cocktail of chaos. If only we could harness that human inventiveness to create a world where we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every time things go south. But hey, that would require actual cooperation, and we all know how well that's going these days.
World Trade Organization, world this and world that. And that multilateralism is then breaking down for unilateralism for the same reasons. So there are these three orders related to too much debt. Debt is money. Second, internal order. How does our system work? Who's going to get control of this problem? And then number three, in addition of the five main forces, there's also throughout history climate, acts of nature. Droughts, floods, and pandemics have killed more people and toppled more orders. And then there's also throughout history, man's inventiveness and new technologies, which is creating this transformative result.
Right.
The interactions of these is what's going on. So if we look at tariffs.
Here we go. Tariffs are about to get the spotlight. It's like watching a soap opera where the plot twist is always about money. And let's be real. Tariffs are just a fancy way of saying, let's make everything more expensive and see who blinks first. It's a game of chicken that nobody wins. Except maybe the folks who sell popcorn while we all squabble over the crumbs. If only we could focus on real solutions instead of just slapping tariffs on everything like it's a band-aid for a broken leg.
Tariffs represent a dealing with the imbalances. The imbalance means we have a tremendous capital imbalance and a tremendous trade imbalance, which is unsustainable. And so that's the backdrop of this. Related to that is also the international conflict. How do you have dependency, mutual dependency? How can the United States be a safe country and not manufacture things and have to import them for China? Or how can China be safe in terms of having capital and American capital? Those connections are breaking down. So that's the essence of the backdrop. When we get into the tariffs, I'm sure we'll get into it.
Well,
but that's
Ray, that's a great backdrop to understand the way you're thinking about it contextually. But let's go straight to the tariffs, which is to say, how do you think that?
Finally, we're getting to the tariffs. It's about time. It's like waiting for the main course after a long appetizer of economic jargon. But let's be honest, tariffs are just a way for politicians to flex their muscles while the rest of us get stuck with the bill. It's a classic case of let's make things more complicated instead of actually solving the problem. I can already feel the headache coming on.
How do you think, therefore, they play out? Is there, given the history that you talk about, is there the political appeal, either here in the U.S. or elsewhere, for these tariffs ultimately? And from an economic perspective, as we're all watching the market today, it's gotten a little bit better. But obviously, folks have lost 10%. Someone said to me last week, this is like a wealth tax, except that nobody gets the money. In that, 10% of a lot of folks' wealth vanished overnight as a function of at least this discussion thus far. So what happens?
Well, mechanistically, it raises costs. It lowers revenues for companies. I mean, what does it mean for a company? It means costs are going to go up, revenue is going to go down, and capital is going to be harder to come by. And so, and then we're trying to replace manufacturing. I mean, I agree.
Here we go again, trying to replace manufacturing like it's a pair of old shoes. It's not that simple. You can't just wave a wand and expect everything to magically fall into place. It's like trying to teach a toad to tap dance. It just doesn't work that way. And let's not forget the ripple effects of all this. Higher costs, lower revenues. It's a recipe for disaster. If only we could focus on real solutions instead of just playing economic whack-a-mole.
Agree with the problems, okay, about the fact that we don't manufacture and that there is a problem with that. But there's a structural problem of whether we can manufacture. We have a population that basically 3 million people, 1% of the population, is incredibly brilliant. I mean, they go to the best schools, they come out, they make the unicorns, inventiveness, half of which, by the way, are foreigners. And at the same time, they are making the unicorns. At the same time, what we have is 10% of the population around them that's doing very well. The 60% of the population has below a 6th grade reading level. And it's tough to be productive. So when we agree with the problem, too much debt, Secretary Bessent and others agree we should get it down to 3%. We have to get the budget deficits down to 3% of GDP. This is not, we all agree on the problem.
The magical 3% of GDP. It's like the holy grail of budget deficits. Everyone loves to talk about it, but good luck actually getting there. It's as elusive as a toad in a foggy swamp. And let's be honest, agreeing on the problem is the easy part. Solving it is where the real fun begins. It's like saying, yeah, I should really clean my bog, but then just sitting back and watching the muck pile up.
Problem. The question is, what do we do about it? How do you create that self-sufficiency? And so from a practical point of view, that manufacturing is very difficult under this sort of circumstances to create within the United States, yet it's needed.
So therefore, you agree with the president? You disagree with the president? I'm trying to understand what the conclusion is here. If the president is watching you right now, if Scott Bessent is watching you right now, you're telling him what? This is a good idea? You're telling him abandon this idea? What are you saying?
I agree with the problem, okay? I am very concerned about the solution, okay? The practicality of the solution. In other words, I think that this is going to create not only the problem, the capital markets problem that I'm talking about related to prices going up, costs going up, prices, revenue going down, and capital problem.
Here we go again. Prices up, costs up, revenues down. It's like a financial merry-go-round that nobody wants to ride. And let's not kid ourselves. This is just a fancy way of saying we're all in for a rough ride. It's like trying to paddle upstream in a swamp full of muck. If we don't figure this out soon, we'll be stuck in a cycle of economic chaos that makes my bog look like a 5-star resort.
But I also think that this is going to create great sand in the gears of production worldwide. At the same time, I do agree that this interdependency, this issue of productivity in the world in which we have to be competitive and productive, and we're not competitive in producing things, is a longer-term problem, not an easy one. And I do expect that it is going to have political consequences. This is the nature of the cycle. It is coming also at the same time as we have a budget issue. Now, the budget issue is a comparably important issue. So as we look ahead in the months ahead, we have to get the budget deficit down to 3% of GDP. I worry about that at the same time as this is happening. These are not easy problems to solve. I'm concerned.
Here we go, concerned about the budget deficit, all juggling a whole circus of economic issues. It's like trying to balance on a tightrope while the ground is crumbling beneath you. And let's face it, these problems are about as easy to solve as getting a toad to stop croaking at midnight. If we don't tackle these issues head on, we might just find ourselves in a financial swamp that's even harder to escape.
Sure, because the bigger problems exist. The debt exists. You can't get around the debt. The overspending exists. You still have that. You still have that competitiveness issue. These have repeated throughout history. We're in a period that's very much like the 1930s.
Well, here we are at the end of our thrilling escapade into the foggy world of tariffs and economic jargon. We started with Ray Dalio serving up his special blend of worry sandwiches about the solutions to Trump's tariffs. Honestly, I expected a riveting piece of economic insight. But I may as well have been watching grass grow. From the melodrama of breakdowns to the stark reality of one man's debt, it was a delightful reminder that every financial discussion is essentially just a game of musical chairs. Except I feel like I and the poor toad still stuck on a stump, watching everyone else trip over their own feet. And if we're really concerned about the budget deficit while juggling all this chaos, well, I suggest we all hold on to our wallets. So, did my expectations get met? If by met, you mean a muddled mess of predictable outcomes, then absolutely, but let's call it what it is, an economic soap opera that's dangerously close to just putting us all to sleep. In closing, tariffs and solutions are like trying to catch a slippery fish with your bare hands, not just hard, but utterly frustrating. If only the world would stop complicating things like an oversized frog trying to fit into a tiny lily pad. If you manage to endure this economic roller coaster with my toad-like commentary, do me a favor, slap that like button like it's a mosquito buzzing around your head, and subscribe. Or you'll miss out on more thrilling content like this. Who knows, it might even make your day slightly less miserable. Now off you go, and don't forget to watch where you step. This bog is getting swampy.